11 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. The Audit Committee.
Mark Fletcher,
he's
that's
not
right,
coming.
I think he said he
Mark
could be
coming?
here, yeah.
He's not coming. Take a call for attendance. Schiavone,
Yes.
Steiner,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Fleischauer, no. So we've got 4, Fletcher, 4 or 5. So we have you all have the packet that was on the website, which has also the audit charter.
Is it the charter or is it the ordinance?
Well, that's the ordinance, which isn't the charter, includes the
Okay.
charter. We have organizational matters. This is primarily an organizational meeting for the new people to make sure that we know what we do and why we do it, and what we can and can't do, and what the board wants us to do and not to do. We will meet again after the quarter and look at the quarterly results, and by that time, hopefully, the audit is done. We would prefer the audit be done before the next audit's due.
Well, I mean, I remember last January, we were upset because we didn't have it in January, now it's March.
David, you met with the auditor last week, right?
Yes, sir.
What is it? What's the holdup? I mean, it's March?
Christmas, I guess.
It happens every year, that's gonna be a problem.
No, it doesn't actually. I actually saw one of the previous audits in August, it was signed off, it was done. And now we're looking at, 1st November was the designated date? Then they said December the 15th, and now we're already in March. And will he have problems with LGC?
The Sharon Edmondson was fairly firm when she addressed that matter at the Finance Officers Conference the week before last. And the 1 December date that, for hurricanes that it was slid to, that date's come and gone. And regardless of what dialogue is taking place between the auditor and the local government commission, the contract is still going to have to be amended to reflect a different due date. So they're not going to get paid until the local government commission signs off on their paycheck, which has to have a contract amendment done. So
And does the board have to do that, or can you do that? The amendment to the contract?
I'm going to bring that amendment to the contract to the Board of Commissioners.
Is this the audit firm we've had in the past, or is this a new audit
The
firm?
new one.
It's a larger audit firm, not one of the small town jobs.
And they're that far behind? Man,
Apparently those 2 weeks in a lot of towns really knocked them down, because a lot of facilities disappeared with the county
Yeah.
records. You gotta reconstruct everything. I don't know. Doesn't make sense that small town finances could have done and get it away, but
I wonder if it'd be a good idea to get a letter from them just for your historical records of exactly what contributed to that.
That would be a good idea.
Well, I mean, the answer is a hurricane. I mean, that's the answer. That's the answer that we get from him.
but that really didn't affect our audit, right? It might have affected their firm, but not our audit.
Well, they're doing our audit and haven't produced it yet, so I'm not being flippant, but,
Well, are they gonna say we
I-
didn't give them information, or are we gonna say they didn't work on the information? Who's gonna point fingers at who?
we provided all the information every time that they wanted in
At the date they.
fairly quickly, on a fairly quickly basis.
Okay.
But, if you keep coming back, and keep coming back and coming back, it's like how many times you gonna come back to the well on it. But
So do we have them for multiple years, or we gotta?
No, it's such a year by year.
I mean, I'd like to know if they're at fault, if they're at fault, do we want
Yeah,
to
change on-
give them another chance, or?
You'll have to decide as a committee if that's what you want to do.
Seemed like we went through.
And I think when we have that audit committee meeting with him, you might decide, whether you want to
When would the decision need to be made for the next year audit, or is that already been?
Pretty doggone quick. I mean, there are
Some
There
are
are
signing up.
new contracts coming into the LGC for approval to do the upcoming year's audit plan.
For 19. So organizations, what I'd like to do is walk you through the ordinance 1818. But as of the moment, I think the only thing that's missing are the dates which we will approve today. I sent back to the board that's the dates we want to meet for the quarterly reports. The audit report
John,
meeting,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was told to let the board know that April 3rd on this date is not good for Mark.
And
Just
it's,
for the record.
and it's not good for me at 1 o'clock. If you can move it to 3 o'clock, I'll be okay, but 1 o'clock I can't do.
These are on Wednesdays, aren't they?
Yeah, we just spitball these, you know, and pick 3 months between them, so.
they may be all busy. But it's probably better that we have a day that everybody agrees to, because a lot of guys have automatic meetings on certain days of the week. They know that the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday, and that's why I went out and asked Heather to check with everybody. So,
I mean, Fridays are better for me. If I am out of town, I'm usually back on Friday, but Wednesdays is right in the middle of work week. So it's a tough one.
so I'm okay with
Friday or
Fridays.
Monday.
Are you okay with
I'm
Fridays?
good on Fridays.
Tony?
Fridays are actually better probably for me.
So why don't we, is the 5th on a Friday?
It is.
That's not a holiday, is it, day after July
Can you
4th?
track that?
Yeah,
Maybe
April
can-
April or
Yes,
January.
ma'am.
Can we update that to the 5th? Are you okay for the 5th?
April 5th?
You okay? Everybody okay for the 5th of July?
Well, the 5th of July is,
April,
kind of
April,
fun,
not, April, not, I don't know why I was thinking about that.
yeah.
And we'll check to make sure Mark's okay.
Are we going, or the
I
other
don't-
ones,
I
dates
don't-
we'll keep?
Well,
The other dates I'm okay with, I was okay, and I assumed everybody else was. She was, Heather went out and asked everybody, and she said this met everybody's desire. So we'll bring it to the board at the next meeting.
so, we're gonna leave the other ones Wednesdays then, or we're gonna move them to Fridays, or?
You're much better on Friday. Is everybody
I'm much
on
better,
Friday?
I'm much better on
I'm
Friday.
okay, I mean, it just, I work my schedule around it.
Tony?
I can
Fridays.
do either. Fridays probably would be a slightly preferable, but I can do anything.
So that would be July the 5th, October the 11th, and January the 10th.
Are y'all closed for the 4th?
Is that a Friday every week?
Not a Friday day. Well, we're still open on the 5th anyway.
I don't know. So are these close enough after, because June 30th would be the end of the quarter, so.
Not June.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, so July 5th, we can't really move it up, right, because the quarter won't close, if it's.
Right. You're good 2 days afterwards, right, David?
Yeah, just, you know, midnight of the next working day, we can do those budget to actual.
So does that extend through October now? We're moving all of these till Fridays? Is that what we're doing potentially?
And just know that Mark's not here to take up for himself.
July. Okay. October
These
David,
are at 1 o'clock?
and January. I think 1 o'clock's probably better.
Works for me.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave, do we have, have you got the football schedule, your calendar yet?
That, there's one Thursday night game.
Yeah, but how about the October 12th? Do we have a home game that weekend?
I do have it.
We could meet at the college.
Okay, that would work.
We could meet here.
Very bigger.
It's a bye week.
Okay.
Okay, we got that settled, so
What
we're good for
about July?
July the 5th,
Well,
That's fine.
I
October
thought it
the
was
11th,
closed. You guys,
and January the 10th.
July 5th, the holiday, or?
She said no,
No,
July the 4th is a holiday.
the 4th is.
my birthday, okay.
We'll bring cake.
All right.
But what are you gonna do what are you gonna do if Mark's not available on any of those days?
We'll have to sort it
He'll
out.
be available.
Okay.
He's retired.
Okay.
These plans
If
also.
dates do not work, they can be amended during the meeting.
So, have you already read the ordinance?
Yes.
Hey,
So,
John, just for,
Yes, sir.
one point on, y'all decide your dates, you don't have to take them back to the board of commissioners. You don't, it just says that you meet quarterly, y'all decide
and
your
I think the
schedule.
board wanted to have it in the, I recall the board wanted to have it in the ordinance.
I'm getting all over it.
Oh, maybe we can, maybe you're right, we declare it, print it out, it's
It just says
posted,
you're to meet 4 times a
Yeah.
year quarterly.
and we post it. As long as we post it, we're
You
good.
don't have to ask for
Yeah.
permission on
Gotcha.
that.
So we're good. We post that on the audit committee page, or meeting page. So, just to make sure that you don't have to do this every audit committee I'm working with, understand our role is to support the board in making sure that the financial records are proper, that no misbehavior is going on, that we can detect from the financials, that controls are being implemented where it's supposed to be. It's not to be a consultant to the town, but rather the board's protective service. So we will look at things, we'll look at controls, evaluate them. We make no decisions as a board, as a committee, other than we might decide to recommend something. Like when it comes time for the auditor, we as a group will decide, we look at the interview people, look at it and decide if in fact we want to recommend one. The board will still listen to different opinions, but it's our job to recommend to the board. So we're only recommending on anything. So if the town wants to do something different, they come to us with something, the board will make the recommendation. And if you see anything going forward, if you see a thing that you think might need to be looked at, then you should identify it to the board in the audit committee meeting, and we decide how we're gonna handle that. Organizationally, we've got our dates, on it. We already know how the finances are available right away. I'm not sure this is the time to do it,
Could y'all, move in motion on the schedule to adopt that schedule as you've amended, just so that we'll have that, so that it's clear to the clerk on what that, regular meeting.
Make a motion, we adopt the schedule as we changed it.
Okay.
is
Which
there a
is,
second?
I'll second it.
which is April
Discussion?
5th.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, what,
It's April 5th, July 5th, October 11th, January 10th.
thank you. Okay.
Any discussion? Take a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes? 4-0. Okay, so we've got not the quarterly, but we have, and it's a good exercise for us, if you will. I remind you that the financial statements for the town need to be in the full accrual basis.
Whoa. Modified accrual, John. Modified accrual, not full
Well,
accrual.
not according to FASB 34.
This is the book that tells you how to do that, and 159 dictates modified accrual. Now, there may be a,
Well, FASB 34, which is not getting updated again, says accrual. But
but we follow 159 local government commission rules.
okay, but it's not the cash basis. But what we're seeing is the cash basis, am I correct? These statements that we have now for end of February are the cash basis,
It's strictly a budget to actual. That's
Of
a
cash.
cash basis.
but a cash basis. So what we're looking at is a cash basis set of statements, not the final things. The end of year statement will be on the accrual basis as is audited for the auditor. There'll be-
What all does that impact in here? I saw vehicles.
It's primarily the state distributed revenues that are accrued. They're collected during the fiscal year, but they're actually not, the distributions aren't made until 2 quarters later. So that's the primarily the big pig for the town.
Versus full accrual. So if you will, if you've looked at the financials, Any inputs, any issues, questions?
And I'll just go ahead, I said it before, I mean, I just have a really hard time understanding what this is saying. And I don't know what our responsibilities are to review it, but it's just very difficult to get the key messages out of here. I mean, we have the deciphering key now, which helps, but it's just, we're really in the weeds, and I don't know what we're, looking for. I did find a report I thought was really good, and I sent out an email yesterday with kind of an example, but to me, if we get something on the one page that shows the big picture, it would be a lot easier to get our arms around what this is and if there are any problems or what's going on, so.
And that'd be easy to do, and that chart you got, that's fine, but, I do prepare a one-page slide, that I have in the past for the board's quarterly, input, and it's a macro, it's a macro view, but, it really depends on how you want to describe transparency and availability, because one could infer that these are big numbers and it's not clear to me at the detail level. So what we have devolved to in an effort to be as transparent as can, there's every single transaction that is authorized in the budget right there. If you want it, you can get to it. If we want to do a roll-up of that and have a macro, that is an easy exercise that I do every month. That's really on the budget officer side that says, how we do a big picture, by fund revenues versus by fund expenses. So that's an easy thing to do. I already do that. But
So
Might be good to see both of them.
could you bring a statement, sort of, we separate by fund, give me the total fund picture, the revenues and the expenses?
absolutely, yeah.
I think even the
That
board.
spreadsheet I sent out, I can give it to you, it's really, the charts are built, you just key things into the cells and it'll create it. To me, this is kind of middle ground because, just for example, the vehicles, $63,613. It's like, is that one, is that two? We're kind of at this level where it's really hard to do a review. So if we went down and said it's 2 trucks or it's 1 truck or whatever, but it's 63,000, I don't know is that reasonable? Seems like a lot for one, seems like a deal for two. I just have a real hard time understanding what's expected of us looking at this set of numbers.
That's an example of one of, I think that's a couple quarters, that's a couple quarters old.
What I'd like to see is what we have here, only by fund.
That's
So
what
all the
that
fund
is.
revenue.
That's
all
what that
total.
is.
That's a one page. I'm talking about this whole document, but by fund. So fund revenue and expenses. Fund
That's
revenue, expenses. Fund
what
revenue.
that
Is that what
does.
that is?
That's what that does.
Yeah, general cap.
So this is rolled up to the
fund level.
level.
To the fund, we're talking total fund.
Well,
That's
but
not this.
But down at, yes, it is, John.
It is.
It is, down at the bottom, and it rolls them all together.
So,
So how much revenue do we have from FEMA? You can't see that on that.
From FEMA.
Well,
No.
You gotta go
You
line
gotta
item.
have that detail to
This
see.
detail, I'm
Yeah,
looking
but
at
this
this
is the
detail by
summer.
fund.
This is the summer Tom.
so this is as of what day?
And that's
Yeah, that's
why,
like September.
that's why I get the
As
Excel.
of September. So, this was as of February 28th, so that's how many months? It's not like half or 3/4, right? That's,
Yeah, Tom, that's just one I had in my list here.
No,
That's exemplematic of what's available.
what I'm thinking is, we're at the end of February, so that's 8 months into a 12-month year, so that's
75%.
75%. So would we expect year-to-date percent realized down the board here to be 75%? Or, how do I know we're on track now that we're 3/4 way through the year? Well, I'm just
Line
looking
cap.
at, what is,
It's 66%, not 75%.
what's expected of us?
You're right.
Is that the annual?
You're right.
It's 812.
Okay, so, but I look at, where do I look here to see if this snapshot in time, are we exceeding our budget, under our budget, on budget, you know? That's, I assume, what we're doing, and maybe I'm misinterpreting our role, but it seemed like we're oversight of the financial reports, which means at this point in time, where do we stand relative to where we should stand?
Well, let's talk about that. You know, because that charter talks about oversight of processes. Is it talking about the actual work product? I mean, is your function basically a budget committee?
Good question. I mean, to me, if the process is broken, the financials will be broken. So if we're really just looking at process, then we should be not looking at numbers, we should be looking at the steps and the, you know, how this report is generated. I just think we need some clarity about what is expected of us.
So David, did you just say you don't think the audit committee should be concerned if you're overrunning?
I don't know,
one
Tom
element
asked that
versus
question.
another?
I don't have an answer, I think we need to understand what's expected of us. When it says oversight of the town's financial reporting process, system, internal controls, external audit. I think the external audits, all right, internal controls, we kind of let somebody else do the look, but,
Does the town have a budget committee that looks at it?
we are. So when we get these
Who
reports,
looks at the budget implications of, okay, I'm 1/3 over where I need to be in certain expenses,
That's the function of the budget officer, which is the manager.
the manager.
it's you.
That's right.
So are we oversight of that, or what are we relative to
You know,
oversight responsibility? If I'm supposed to be doing something other, you know, I looked through this report, I had some questions, I highlighted some things I didn't quite understand. I don't know if that's the right thing to be doing, or we should be doing something else. And I don't want to nitpick on little things because there's not enough information to answer the question. I don't know if that's of any value.
Well, I think that gets to the crux of what our responsibilities are. Are we here to look at these financials and question what's going on in the financials from a budget standpoint and spending standpoint, which I think to some degree that's more the Board of Commissioners' role. So if that's the Board of Commissioners' role, then what is the
Well, but they've
role of the
assigned-
audit process?
It's assigned the audit committee to do that for them.
To actually look at the budget,
Look at it.
look at expenses.
Feedback, if you got an issue, then we take it back to the board. Or we just share it. Like last meeting, somebody spotted a miscellaneous $30,000.
Yeah.
And we asked the town manager, so what was that? And he said it was sale of vehicles. Only hours later, we found it wasn't sale of vehicles, it was an accounting irregularity. They put it in the wrong thing. So I'm looking at some of these things and saying, we should be 66%, like in revenue, we're at 100% almost in a couple of them. Expenses, we've overrun, and you say, well, that's normal, it was overtime, we had 2 storms. You know, and here's a chance to talk to the town manager, is there any reason we need to be worried about that? Or is it gonna be okay? Or do we need to tell the board, we got major issues coming because we're halfway through, but we're 75% through on expenses already?
and I'm okay with that dialogue.
You know, that's-
I mean, it's,
And I think that protects the board, that when we go to the board, to a board meeting, somebody, then we can share, we looked at it, we don't have any problem, we don't see any major issues. Or if we saw one, the town manager explained it, and we're okay with that. That's just shaping the shield between the board and the town manager, and we're communication linking together, not taking anybody's responsibility away, but you have the right to look at some of these and say, is there an issue? I have,
David, is the budget done anything other than a full year? Do you budget by month or quarter?
we just do it on an annual basis.
Just on an
Just on the-
and we then look at, because he shows us a percentage we're through
Yeah.
each month,
Yeah.
and you can say, okay, we're 2/3 of the way through, so we should be at 66, and if you're not, just look at it and see why.
And that may be helpful, and this is probably the first time you've seen that. Maybe we should back up and just talk about the form of these of these sheets.
Yep.
Just to refresh. And I'm looking at page 1, which is the revenue, don't tell me to back down if you prefer me to do something else.
That's good.
Okay. The estimated revenue, and in all of these spreadsheets, the estimated revenue or estimated expense, that's the annual budget number. And then the next column is month to date, either revenues or expenses, and that's what we've seen this month. And then a running total year to date, and then of course a delta column with a percentage year to date total of where we are. And on this key, it's a traditional, Fund 10, Fund 30 is water, 10 is general, that kind of thing. And then there are totals, and granted, Tom, we could probably run this report for the audit committee's consumption and actually segregate it a bit better by fund, because this is actually the gross run that I do to post to the website. And perhaps it would be better if we actually just segregated, had Fund 10 on the first page, Fund 30 on the second page. And that way, it would be a bit more obvious on what the breaks are. So
I think that goes be useful for the board. I think the board would like to have it as well.
it's easier to see, when you got, your first chapter's your general fund, your second chapter's your water fund.
Can you do, is it practical to do revenue then expense for each fund?
Maybe.
And fund
We
balance?
could do an Excel, we just grab it
Well,
from Excel and put it under.
Well, before you go to fund balance, you gotta remember, Tom, that fund balance is a calculated end of year number. That's, fund balance is what that is.
Okay.
But anyway, on the organization of the documents, that's generally how it is. First column is the budget, and then the subsequent ones are the monthly hits, and then the running totals on what that is.
And it's kind of interesting, took me a minute to figure it out yesterday when I was going through this. Unrealized revenue, if it's a negative number, that means you're over.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing,
Yeah.
not a bad thing.
It all depends on where you are in the year. That's the part that.
Well, that's the part
It's confusing.
Well,
And I don't know if anybody, but I'm used to seeing something that trends, so that we're here. Are we trending above? Are we trending below? What's it been, on something more visually comprehensible? It's just really hard to, I don't know if we're in good shape or bad shape by looking at these numbers. Or if we're on track or not on track. I don't know how to make that determination.
I would not argue with you, but you
Okay.
can go to the last page on revenues and expenses and kind of see where you are on the final total.
Right, but where should we have been as of February 28th?
Well, true.
I
But
don't know. Yeah,
he does a budget by month.
right. Well,
Well, the budget's for the year,
No,
but we ought to know.
I mean, compared to last year, at a minimum,
compared to last
we've done
year,
this
it'd be nice,
for
yeah.
lots of years, we should know.
But now we should normally be 2/3 of the way through. Say normally if everything was scheduled together, but it isn't. So I look at the first one, we're 2/3 of the way through, but we've got 2.66 million of ad valorem taxes. Well, that's okay. They were billed in December and they were collected in January.
That's
So
right.
most of that, you hope it's all done. Should be 100%. Other things come like the B part revenues, they'll come before June 30th and after June 30th. So they're logged. And some things are that way. Some taxes are only paid at the end of the year, some fees are paid at the end.
Yep.
But I think this gives you a chance to look at them.
And debt service is a big hit on the expense side because we've got large debt service payments that go out at irregular intervals. And, if you look at the macro on expense and you're 3/4 of the way through, but you're only 50%, used up in your budget, but yet you've got a big sewer debt payment, in the 10th month, that may lead you to believe that, you're understanding, well, not what, because you got a big sewer payment coming up.
But that's what I'm looking for. I mean, how do we know that kind of, I'm sorry if I'm hung up
Well,
on
let me
this,
ask
but are we being, is it the audit committee has reviewed and approved, or okayed, or signed off, or what is it that we're expected to do with this report?
If we reviewed it as a committee, and we have an issue, we take it to the next board meeting. If we don't, somebody could, they say we had no issues. We don't bring anything, the board, audit committee doesn't offer any issues, we didn't, any questions we had, the town manager or the finance director could clear them, we're fine.
So do we want to go through all the questions now?
No, but I think, what I do is I go through, and if I see a thing I don't understand, or I think, I
I've
wonder,
got a lot I don't understand.
David's always here to answer the question.
Okay.
He's the one who's in charge of this, so if you have a question, you ask him, and if you can't, I'm sure he will come tomorrow and give you an answer.
I have a couple mechanical process questions that I have asked David that after this meeting, I don't want to take everybody's time up, I want to ask him some questions, just so I can understand the mechanical process. And I like where it says, on page 2 of the revenue, it says fund balance appropriated. Well, I just want to understand what that means.
Yeah, the transfers, I don't understand the transfer.
Savings account.
That's right, that's
The
what he's
transfer
already.
is simply I moved it from one fund to the
Right,
other.
but why are we doing it?
Okay.
Or he can tell me, he
I'll-
can tell you that
I'll-
might be.
I've already spent 45 minutes of
Okay,
David's
well,
time
I mean,
answering these
I
questions.
mean,
No, but he's good at
Well,
explaining.
The fund balance appropriation, that is really a budgetary, normally year-end entry that's made at the end of the year when everything comes in to true up the books. But in essence, the very simple explanation, fund balance appropriation is money that you're taking in essence from your savings account in order to balance the books in the current year. That's the real
It's an
simple.
appropriation
books
and a
have to balance it.
transfer to, I know, I'm just saying transfers, like transfers to general funds, transfers to fund page, transfer to
Okay.
Hang on, he'll explain that.
That's the answer to the
appropriation.
fund balance appropriation.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Like all these revenues you've listed, and I apologize, I know these questions are probably getting deeper in y'all's.
No.
Like all these revenues in the Fund 10,
Okay.
you get down to the bottom and then you add in $50,000 appropriation. So you're taking that out of savings.
That's right.
Is that to balance back to the expenses for Fund 10?
That's right.
All right, so you're spending money from your savings account.
If your other revenues don't come in higher that negate the
That's right.
necessity to appropriate from fund balance.
How often do you have to balance?
We've been fairly successful in following the, state treasurer's guidelines. Is you budget revenues pessimistically and expenses optimistically, so on purpose, you're conservative with revenue projections, and, we've got a high tax collection rate, so, there's not very often that we've had to actually spend money out of fund balance, even though it was appropriated in order to balance the books.
I
And it's
understand.
primarily that coupled with, being successful in collecting those taxes, we've been able to increase our fund balance in the general fund.
So if this is just an if scenario, if you were having to depend upon the appropriation from the fund balance every year, you had to start questioning what's going on with the revenues. Yeah.
Well, the state has a guideline on
Yeah.
how much we should have, and
Yeah.
the board has a guideline of you should be even higher than you require.
And what are those, Joe? Let's show, what's the state mandate and what is their fund power?
The state's like 8%?
It's 8% is required, but our local fund balance policy is 70%.
Shooting for 70. We were what,
Yeah.
40?
I'm sorry.
40 last year?
It was
We were
better
at
than
63.
63.
So what does that 70% mean? What is that?
You have 70% of your bills
And say,
Or in the
in
fund?
savings. So if
Okay.
you lost revenue for
I got you.
70% of the year, you'd be okay.
I got you.
You wouldn't run out of- On the other hand, 8% is 1 month.
And is that a minimum? That'll vary, right? Because you get all the money and then,
Well, the minimum is 8%, that's 1 month.
okay.
But on a rental organization like us, if we lost rentals,
Yes.
Well, no, I understand. Because I mean, we get all our property revenue probably December, January. We got this huge bucket of money. And then we dwindle it down until the next January, and we get another bucket of money, and we get B part somewhere in there.
We're
But
just fortunate is that the B part, revenue curve is like a double sine wave.
Okay,
And our, ad valorem collections is just like one
Single
sine
curve,
wave.
right.
And we're luckily that they offset in the tax
we get two
collection.
waves of B part, 2 waves of money from B
Yeah,
part?
2 seasons, yeah.
Winter region and summer.
Oh,
Summer's a
okay.
big month.
So this ratio of what's left varies then, right? It follows the sine wave?
No, your unassigned fund balance is constant. It's really a measure of what's in your savings against the upcoming year's projected expenses. So that's a constant.
And we have 70% in our savings?
We certainly do.
And the board's kind of pushing for 100%.
And
And
the
so
state,
really
and the
some
state
towns are-
requirement is only 8%?
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Well,
we're,
most of the people in the state aren't depending on rental
Yeah, I
income.
know,
but didn't we earmark that for something, like the next renourishment or water
No.
tower or something?
that's
It's
general-
just
this is
flat
general fund.
money?
This is general fund. B part is the one.
No, I'm
Well, that's not, I'm
Our
not,
taxes are too high.
not to pat David on the back too much, but he hired this consultant to help him invest all that extra.
Oh, really?
He said that he didn't pay me worth anything, but.
I noticed the revenue is in the books now. It's starting to come in, huh?
Yes, sir.
It's paid off. All of a sudden, we got revenue
Yeah,
coming.
but I've got a chart where I charted like 2 or 3 years of the money coming in and out. And
Okay.
David's right, it's a sine wave, but it keeps increasing up and up.
So if our pay raise, again, on this
Oh, yeah.
committee, this goes up, you'll be the first one to get it.
Thank you.
But Tom, you had another question about basically their interfund transfers.
Yes,
And that's primarily for our capital reserve funds.
okay,
And the way that those capital reserve funds, you can't just appropriate money from fund balance into capital reserve. It needs to hit an operational account and then transition over to a capital reserve account. So
What's the difference between a fund balance and a capital reserve?
fund balance
It's a fund.
is fund balance
Yeah, I gotta understand that, what's capital?
is a measure. Fund balance is a measure of available funds.
Yeah,
Capital reserve fund is an actual fund like the general fund or the water fund. It's a pocket, it's a separate pile of money on the table. if you
Specific,
will,
for specific
For
costs.
yeah,
specific
for
purposes.
specific costs, okay.
So those transfers to capital reserve funds will be reflected as expenses in the operational funds over to the capital reserve fund where they'll show up as a revenue.
But once again, I apologize, the capital reserve fund is a separate
Absolutely.
from the general, regular fund,
It's,
general fund or B-Part fund or whatever.
it's a separate fund.
We have 6 other funds, and some of three of them are capital reserve?
Yeah, there's, water capital
Yeah.
reserve, sewer capital reserve, and the beach inlet.
Inlet,
Yeah,
and
I know that.
It's 20, 40, and 90, I believe.
Yeah.
So, specifically, Tom, on page 2 of the revenue, 20, capital reserve fund for water.
okay. So does that,
David, so that 173,000,
It's the budget.
that's the budget.
Mhm.
And so far this year, we've collected $11,000.
That's correct. Remember that when the original budget was adopted, it was predicated on the system development fee,
Yep.
proposed fee schedule. The commissioners altered that. I would say somewhat, but they altered it significantly. And those revenues that are reflected from that alteration, that's what's come in so
Sure.
far. And that is an actual number there.
Gotcha. So, let me ask another question. This
Okay.
may be something we want to discuss later on. In the revenues, you got 4 or 5 big piles of money that's coming in.
Which
Well, you like ad valorem taxes, you got
Right.
2.6 million, you
Right.
got,
Sales and use.
sales and use, 135,000, building permits, 149.
Right.
Capital charges, down page 2, 950,000.
Right.
Sewer, 817. Have we ever, and there's outside firms that do this, have we ever audited those accounts to make sure we're collecting what we're due?
Yeah, well, the thing about it is a couple of those that, that you mentioned, for example, the building inspections fees, those are collected locally based on the town's fee schedule.
Yes.
So those, I mean, those are monitored every time we have a transaction.
Yeah, that was probably a bad example.
The local option sales and use tax, that's a state distributed revenue that comes, there's a number of factors that go in, but those are state collected revenues and then parsed out.
And state audited.
Yeah.
Does it come to the county or does it come to the town?
Comes to the town, but the county selects the basis of distribution every year. I believe they have the option to go on an ad valorem basis or on a per capita basis. In Brunswick County could not live with making it on an ad valorem basis because of the high dollar value of real estate with small numbers of population for the beach communities. It's just not politically palatable. So that's the way that one happens.
The fee part might be the big one, huh? The rental income. Do we
Well, I mean,
have
that's
a way of auditing the rental agencies or?
our tax collector is, there's a reason why the tax collector, the sheriff used to be the tax collector back in the olden days because she has power of subpoena to do that and is fairly vigilant in that. We have got some unique methods on how we audit those.
Which one is that, David, when you refer to that?
When we're rental income, if I'm running a rental outfit and I've got
Rental.
500 houses,
Combination.
300 houses, how do I know that I'm getting my 6% in?
Those are tax collectors.
Margaret.
Margaret, yeah, you're right.
We don't see that.
Yeah. And that,
And another big issue would be rental on your own. You know, where you just rent your house and you're not a part of an organization that we're watching, and the town also watches that. If you see a place that's not advertised, but it's renting a lot, then they're paying attention. Are we getting our 6%?
yeah, I'd be glad to, for y'all as individuals, if you got questions on that, to talk to Margaret, because some of the things that she does goes to techniques.
And we don't need that advertised.
If you got a burning desire to find out, I'm sure she'd be
Yeah,
glad.
she just called me on something.
Yeah, how that goes. That's, $150 there, so all that's a tax. And, that's almost $2 million a year. Woody, you mentioned, the capital charges on the county sewer. That's actually, the line item that we have special legislation to do the, $497.30 a year that's directly related to the debt service payment on our sewer collection lines that we have. I believe that in our actuary table, it's defined as BB&T sewer 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That's a collection system debt. So that's a one, and it's that legislation we actually have its authority to make that collection just like like the ad valorem taxes is. So then you got everybody's paid.
Let me ask you one other question.
Okay.
Capital Reserve Fund 40, page 3 of the revenues.
Sewer.
Yes, sewer. You got 14,000 for the estimated, and it's year to date's 19,000.
Correct. That's a consequence of how the commissioners decided to amend
Yeah, the schedule.
the water and the
Gotcha.
sewer system development
Gotcha,
fees.
gotcha.
There were two parts to that, one was water and one was sewer, and that's the actual number based on what we got coming in.
Your fund balance appropriated in the corporate world, we call that a plug figure.
No,
If you couldn't make your budget, they'd say, okay, here's 10% more of your revenue budget, go figure out how you're gonna make it.
well, and that particular, you're talking about Fund 30,
Well, I was
the
just-
1.8 million, that's directly attributable to the majority of that directly attributable to the lift station 4 upgrade down there.
Okay.
There were a couple of other things in that, but the 1.6 or 1.7 is primarily, and you'd see that over
All
on
right,
the
so you were
expense side.
appropriating those funds for
Directly.
sure to
That's right.
pay for that.
From sewer fund balance.
You know, you did, what, $5 or $6 million in the fund already?
That's right.
Okay.
We got 3 different ones to do, it'll be one of the years. so. And you might, if you are new to this, you might look at, when you look at the B Park fund,
Mhm.
B Park is for not only taking care of the beach, but also a number of recreation,
I saw
tourism, access to the beach, all kinds of things. So the town manager has the right to say, well, these expenses really are here because of tourism.
Yep.
Or because this, so you will see 3 salaries or parts of salaries that would normally be in the general fund in 10, they're over in 50 in the B Park. We just
Saw
said,
that.
because it's like the roll back.
Yep.
Well, we have to do that because we have tourists,
Yep.
and therefore that should be paid by the B Park fund.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't one time thought to be all sand, and it's not, it's like 3-2, one versus the other. But that's something the town, the finance director decides that's really a linkage,
Yep.
and we want to put that in there.
Now, David, the other question that I had that you and I discussed this morning, and we agreed we'd talk about it after the meeting, unless you want to talk about it now,
Might as well. I mean,
was like on the expenses where, you go to the first page of the expenses, where you had the transfer to B Park Fund at the bottom, $564,000, and transfer to beach and nourishment, $241,000. There's corresponding items in the revenue for those, right?
That's correct.
But you said it was actually a 3-part.
Part of the ad valorem tax. The board voted a 7-cent tax increase to pay for the loan, and so he's transferring that money, he collected, he's transferring it over to B Park, and some of it, the board decided, since some of that money he transferred over to put it in the capital reserve for the beach. So he just separated, it turns out to be the 800,000 that we did the previous year. He's just moving it over.
Yeah. No, I got that part. What I was asking David about this morning is, okay, you're transferring it, you're spending it, you got it in revenue, those two kind of offset. So where's the real money coming from?
The third part of it, when you transfer that $564,000
Yeah.
over to the B Park Fund, that shows up as a revenue in the B Park Fund.
I saw that.
Okay, and then there's an expense for the debt service on the special obligation bond that's like $1.2 million. So that's how that money matriculates through.
So there's another expense here for that.
Yeah, if you look over on the B Park Fund well, you have to look at the revenue first in the B Park Fund.
I've seen that.
And then it will go back through the expense account in the B Park Fund as part of the debt service on that special obligation bond.
But the money first came in through taxes.
Yes.
That's right.
Came
That's
into the general
correct.
fund.
Yes,
The general
that's
fund
right.
collects all the
And-
ad valorem, and he said, okay, but some of that was
Ask for
collected,
it.
and the board said, move some of, don't leave it up in the general fund, move it over to this B Park fund,
Yeah.
and then B Park pays the bill.
That was the 4th entry I couldn't figure
That's
out.
right. And
Money
that,
coming
and
from
I call it a
taxes.
three-part transaction because I got to touch it 3 times.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's very mechanical, it's probably cumbersome, but we do it that way just so that it retains visibility and we can track it back through.
So, point me to where that $564,000 is in expense in B Park.
Okay. Well, track it through,
It won't be the expense, it'll be revenue.
okay.
I've seen that.
When you transfer it to the B Park Fund,
Yeah.
it goes in the revenue. Look over in Fund 50.
Okay, Fund 50, I got that, I see the 564.
Under expenses.
Yep. I see the
And-
expenses and I see it in revenue, that's 2.
Debt Service Central Reach is the second entry under Fund 50, $1.4 million.
Yes, that's part of that.
That's
paying
right.
off the loan.
Okay.
That's
But it's a
right.
combination of the money that the general fund sent over,
Yeah,
but we didn't have enough, and they're collecting yearly B-Part money,
yeah,
which is about half and half. So that tax of 7 cents paid half of it, and new income into B-Part is paying the other half.
gotcha. Thank you.
The interesting thing will come when that's paid off, the board will have to decide, is it gonna keep putting that money then into the fund, either the general fund,
Mhm.
and grow the general fund, or is it gonna put it in the B-Part fund and grow the B-Part fund, or the sand fund? But that'll be a board decision 5 or 6, 7 years from now.
Now, I spent about 3 or 4 hours yesterday going through all these numbers, because I wanted to at least act like I knew what I was talking about.
But that's what this is about. This meeting today is about that. So when you get to quarterly, you should be better equipped to see if you see anything you don't understand. David can explain it to you. And, but there would be clearly 3/4 of those in a year. But some, you know, after the storm, you know that some things are gonna be overrun. But David is managing the account, so he'll find money someplace else maybe to cover that. Or if he doesn't, then he comes to the board and says, I need more money. I need you to appropriate more money. So authorize me to transfer money from here to there, because we had, incredibly high expenses to prepare for the storm or get rid of the storm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just, if I could add to that, we're fairly religious in trying to adhere to line item discipline in our budgets. Depending on which finance officer you talk to, or which manager you talk to, they'll say, well, at the department or the fund. But I really accentuate the importance of adhering to line item discipline, to staying within that. This year with the hurricanes, we've busted our overtime budget specifically. And I haven't gone in and tried to fix that, but, and we'll manage through it. But we will be receiving FEMA reimbursements, and that when that comes in, and those are the get ready for a storm type of things.
Can you explain, because I got questions on how that whole FEMA reimbursement, there's reimbursement, right? So
You
we-
spend it,
First.
Yeah,
then you apply to get it back.
right. So for Florence, we got enough to do a whole nother central reach?
We ain't got anything.
But we could do one and get it reimbursed? I mean, the numbers I'm hearing are huge.
Yeah, well, for example, my overtime budgets are, and this is small, there are several categories of damages, A through G. The big one's G, that's beach.
Yeah.
A, and B and C
Infrastructure.
is, those are the getting ready, I call them the getting ready and picking up trash after the storm. So those will be coming in, and.
So you incurred the expense, you can submit for that, and you get reimbursed for that.
Right, and when I do that, it's out of the existing operational
Okay.
budget, but the consequence of that is, you bust lines.
Yeah.
And so we will manage through that, because those, I call them small, and they're not small, they're $100,000 or more, but relative to the big pig beach nourishment,
Yep.
they're relatively small. So those will be coming back in, and they'll get replaced in the lines that we've busted so far.
But
Your
the-
question on the beach nourishment or the FEMA storm damages, that will actually be a separate, require a separate budget amendment, which is, will approach the capital project size on having to do that, because that will stretch out. I'm anticipating complete with permitting efforts that's going to be required, and just the size and nature of the dredging community and how that construction program works. That could take 3 years. So
No, I guess I'm still confused from whatever the previous one was, because there was just all this discussion about, was it $3 million or some amount of money that the whole debate about give it back to the taxpayers, like, how did, I still don't get how we ended up with, you know, money on the table, if you will, for, that one.
So you got reimbursements we didn't anticipate, right?
No, we didn't,
we
there were,
didn't.
we were, my understanding, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is we were actually approved for X amount more reimbursements, and we didn't have the expenses to offset against them, so we never got them. Is that wrong, or is that, I just remember the whole debate about we should reduce our taxes and give it back. And it's like, I didn't understand how we got it to give back.
There's two parts to that question.
Okay,
The first part is that when FEMA approves a mitigation project,
okay,
they use engineered design federal OMB estimates of what those costs will be.
okay,
They approve that.
okay,
Whenever, and you, you adopt a project ordinance based on those estimates.
okay,
As a practical matter, whenever you go to bid, and the bids come in
yep,
lower,
yep,
and your expenses, the reality check is that the expenses you incur do not, let's just say that a FEMA project's approved at $7 million, but you execute the project and it only costs $4 million, you're only gonna get $4 million back.
okay,
You don't get the extra money.
okay, okay.
So that's.
I mean, that was my confusion, because I didn't see how we had extra money.
Yeah.
Okay.
You only get what you.
So it's kind of like, you know, my insurance adjuster gives me, well, they cut you a check for the roof, but then if you get, it's a little different, because then if you get it done cheaper, they're only gonna pay you the cheaper amount. They're not gonna pay you they'll say you can spend $4 grand, and if you get it done for $3, they give you $3. I'm talking about FEMA.
You
They
only,
give you what you spend.
yeah, they give you
Yeah,
what you spend.
okay, okay.
One of the things I think, and David put it a minute ago, when you look at this, when you're auditing this, if you look at the 66%, so you know he doesn't change line item budget, it stays the same.
Yeah.
So if he's overrun overhead or like overtime and stuff like that, you might wonder, well, where's he getting it from? Well, you got soft variable expenses in a town or a company, and he's just backed off on some of those. If you look down, we got 6, 7%, 15%, 14%, not spending as much on uniforms and travel and training, blah, 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 to try to cover that excess within his year. But now, if he runs up at the end of the year though, and he's gonna be out of balance, then he's gonna come to the board and say, I need to take more money out of the general fund.
Gotcha.
But if he can manage this, and he's like you said, he's been optimistic in expenses and, you know, pessimistic in revenue, and it comes out okay. Otherwise, we have ways of, and the other option, we can't take it out of the fund, is to tax people.
Yep.
Or borrow more money, put in the fund, but, so this is a good sign of when it was bad. You see now more low expenses percentages now than you would have last year. But that's just management, making sure he doesn't overrun his budget.
Yeah, we did the same thing in the corporate
Exactly, do
world.
the same thing.
No, no, no,
David, is there a simple report that would compare this year with last year, same period? Is that one you ever look at, or purely just against the budget?
I can check, because our, we're in the middle of the budget cycle right now, and that's one of the comparisons that we do.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's something, and that's a fairly manual process. I don't know if there's something in our system, that we can do. We'll check and follow up on that.
That's it's always good to be able to
Good.
compare.
Compared to
How
last
it's
year.
going.
And are your statements posted online every month?
This
The month.
is what goes on.
They stay up there, or just?
They stay up there all month long until I replace it with the next month. Now, I don't keep, 12 of them by the time when January comes down, February takes its place.
So if I wanted to have the opportunity to see some previous ones, what would be the best way for me to do that?
We would just print them for you.
Okay.
We just pull them for you.
Anything else for David? Michael?
I was wondering if there's any, do you do the League of Municipalities or everything kind of through the LGC? Is there any resources available, like training for what we do here in this committee? To LGC offer audit committee training sessions or anything that would be valuable for members to consider doing?
I haven't seen anything specific for training, through the league or through the local government commission, on their website. Not for audit committees, but there's a plethora of training,
And the
for
state auditors,
finance.
yes. The Government
stuff.
Auditors Association has training, but,
Yeah, they didn't know how much we really needed to see our money involved with.
But we can check on that too.
we could even think about bringing somebody in here to do for board members as well as for members of committees to just understand better how the finances are kept, because they're not really that different, but they look different up front, unless you understand fund issues. And the little income statements by fund, and there's a balance sheet by fund at the end of the year. So it's just not really that different, but again,
No, but it's critical to understand that part of it.
exactly.
That's the questions
I
that,
think it'd be valuable for us to.
nice, David's been nice enough over the last several days to, because I'm like, how's this work? And he's explained it to me.
I will take that to the board, the next board meeting, and ask if the board wants to fund that, but it would pay to have somebody come in and train that.
Are we going to talk about the RSM review and where we stand on that?
We are not, because actually the board sent some information where the town sent the information back to RSM. That
Okay.
final report we thought was final, it's not the final report.
Okay.
They're gonna be reissuing their report. I'm not sure if it affects the risk matrix or not, but they're gonna do, and David asked that we not talk about it until we have a final.
And who is RSM?
Fine. What's that?
What is that subject?
It's the internal control assessment they did for us.
Got it.
And the other would be to clarify with the board, and we'll do that at the next meeting, how they want the audit committee involved in looking at that. And of course, if we're gonna follow our charter here, we're gonna wanna know what the right ones are and a way to come as we go forward the next 2 years, 3 years. Is everything, how can David tell us that we're getting it done? Things are okay, things don't need to be changed. Again, just to confirm to the board that it's being looked at. But that'll have to come out of the board at the next meeting.
And John, the last audit that would have been completed, which I guess would have been the year before,
17.
was there a management letter associated with that audit?
There was
Spelled out
a
anything?
problematic one, yeah, it had a couple of significant issues.
Okay, is that something that?
It's public information.
Okay.
It's actually posted on the
That's
website.
On the website.
Go to the website, the 2017 audit report. And the audit portion is the last, so just go to the end
Yep.
and back up a few pages,
Got it.
and they'll get a letter to you, and then they'll tell you what kind of errors, and then what they were, what the town's responses were. Anything else? You good? David, anything for the committee that you want to?
I'm good. Just offer up to the citizens, well, everybody's new, except John. If there's any follow-up questions, you'd like, be glad to, just feel free, give me a call, shoot me an email. Love to talk to, our program here with you at your leisure and discretion.
Motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second.
Second? In favor? Aye. Thanks, David.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.